So, morning, Zara.
Good morning.
Morning. Okay, so I'm Sam. This is Zara, and we're two counsellors and psychotherapists who are trainers and clinical supervisors as well. So in our practice, we work with clients who are presenting with diagnosis of neurodivergence, who are maybe questioning whether neurodivergence is part of their profile. So do you want to say anything, Zara, to start us off?
Well, I think before we actually put the recording on, talked about kind of sometimes being dysregulated. For me, I'm stood up at the moment online because what would happen normally with myself and Sam, I'd be headphones on, wandering up and down, pacing, just to keep myself regulated and online, so I can actually regurgitate what's sitting in my brain, which whizzes around, and now has found a place for it to be landed and discussed and maybe explored. So there we are.
And for me, I look like I'm sitting very still, but I am fidgeting underneath. That's what I do. So up here looks like the swan, and down here is the other part of the swan that is paddling. So, and I don't know that I've shared that with you before, Zara.
No, you haven't. No, because I suppose when we discuss things, I literally have got my earphones on. I'm pacing the kitchen, doing the dining room, moving through rooms. I can actively engage with my brain when something else is going on. Although I know that's not multitasking. I know that's more regulating my system through movement, which is very different.
Yeah,
I can't multitask to save my life. It just doesn't happen, and it's a big myth that you can. The brain just doesn't do it very well, and it tires your brain out much more than just focusing one thing at a time. That regulation system is not regulated. It's just rushing and being mindless rather than mindful. Lots of research on it. Boys,
I think if I can jump in there though, Zara, because that feels like a really good place to start this, because I know in my experience of can't assume or don't want to assume any standardization really, and there's something about allowing space for that dysregulation however it looks. I'm just wondering about how that might look in your practice really. I'm thinking about it in mine.
To step it back a little bit, you often get people coming in with a referral that, or they've got anxiety, or they're behaviourally difficult, or they're withdrawn. But it's, that is meaning making of the behaviours, and whether that is what is actually happening, or it's, I think we've talked about it in supervision very recently, is it adapting? Is it, not manipulation, which is a big word, a word that's used a lot. We manipulate. Is it that's how we frame how that looks, and actually we're trying to find out actually what it means for the client. And, again, back to that language is meaning making. And we use a lot of language around each other that 99% of the time I've found is wrong. We're giving a meaning to others when actually that might not be why they are responding, reacting, acting out for. So I think it's to be very mindful in the room, to not assume.
Yeah, and even when you said acting out, then there was something felt a little bit predetermined about that. It's kind of like, is that acting out? Because I'm thinking about like meltdowns and shutdowns. It's not acting out. It's an effort to re-regulate.
Yeah, I think the effort to re-regulate might look like, it can look like anything, can't it? It's just what we call it. It then becomes what it is, and then the person, young person, adult, whoever it is that we're labeling that on, it then becomes theirs. And with a lot of clients, they come in with that lived experience of having a framework around them of their X, Y, and Z. They can't sit still, they don't make eye contact, they don't go to sleep, they're difficult, you know, they're avoidant of any demands on them, they kick off with their brother and sister, when actually it's different types of stress responses and the system trying to regulate. And we can't, as therapists, diagnose. It's not our framework, it's not our remit.
No.
It's because I am going into thinking about and visualizing different clients, their presentation and when they come in.
Yeah.
And really not to give it a name, not to use language, but to wait for them to explain, maybe through how they connect, play, draw, or express their body language.
Yeah, and I'm thinking actually about the words that some of my clients use with me, and actually they're not their own words either. So it may be coming out of the mouth, but actually it's a huge projection that's been interjected. So, oh, I'm too much, I'm sorry, you know, oh, I need to be quiet now, you know, those kind of things, or I need to sit still. And actually it's kind of like when I've explored into that a little bit, it's kind of like, it turns out it's not theirs, it's just that it's a message that they've heard so often that they've begun to believe that they are too much, that they take up too much space, that they are hard work, that they fidget too much. And again, it's that effort to fit in, I think, isn't it?
I think it is effort. Yeah, if you're looking out from your mind to the world, and this has been said to me a number of times, it's like you're in your head looking out the world through your own eyes and seeing something that you don't like, or you don't agree with, or you don't understand, or you've missed the nuance. It's just like you're sitting outside on the periphery watching the world go on. And, you know, I certainly can relate to that kind of that sensory overwhelm. Even like this morning, my morning routine slightly changed, so my system is not regulated because it's very sensitive. And one change, one smell, a different kid in the class, or a different person at work, in the workplace, how much that can change. I know we've gone off piece here a little bit, which will happen quite a lot with me because I walk around the houses to get to my destination. I take the scenic route. But I think it's understanding the client's world. And although, you know, there's lots of tools in my toolkit, if we come back to that person-centered relational approach, you won't get to understand the client until you stay in that place with them and get to know them and relate with them, and hopefully create a space that's conducive to them feeling trusting of you and calm enough to be able to connect to those feelings and emotions. And it may not be by language, it may be by how they draw it, how they play again, or how they move around.
You've said two things there that kind of triggered things for me. So one of them was when you said, oh, I've gone a bit off piece there, I was starting to think in terms of that FEC FECIT model. So, you know, because you're talking about that context of the language that I've been given, and yet the environment's being triggered by the different things that might make me become that label that I've been given of being too much, or being, you know, being too emotional, or shutting down and not being forthcoming, whatever. You can choose any almost any behavior, can't you, and turn it into a criticism.
Yes.
And then that being the reflection of the functioning. So it fits in very well there. It also made me think about when I was a counsellor who didn't have the understanding now that I have of neurodivergence, and actually the discussions that were around at the time that I think still are about, like, what approach should I be using? I'm not equipped to deal with this. And I'm an integrative counsellor, and I found that person-centered was exactly the right place to be, because it meant that I didn't have to analyze. I could just build relationship, and actually everything would disclose itself in time. It was time and relationship that became the process for therapy. The goal setting was not effective usually.
No, and you know, back to Carl, all about Carl. We need t-shirts.
All about Carl.
all about Carl. You know, it's not outcome led, it's process. It's slow as you go. And sometimes, like I've said with supervisees of my own, and I sometimes just think it's the magic of the relationship. But it's that bit. It's if you can connect with the other, that's the magic. And although sometimes, you know, I'll have parents share with me that, oh, they're so relieved they've seen you today. I'm like, what did I do today? I was just myself. I just sat in a room with someone talking about stuff. I
completely agree with you as well, because I genuinely think it's working with neurodivergence early on in my practice. I'm saying early on, like in those first 5 years of my practice. What I held in mind was, if I want if I want my clients to be themselves, then I have to be myself. And what it helped me do was kind of do whatever unmasking that I needed to do. So I learned a lot about transparency and congruence. At the time, I was doing a lot of work in schools, and a lot of neurodivergent clients were part of my caseload. When they're meeting me and they're already exhausted in the day because of school, they're going like, well, this is what you get in. So
yeah, especially if you've got someone coming in who wants to go home and sit on their games, wants to talk to the mates. But I think coming backwards from that, there was a thought I was having before when you were talking, because that's what my brain does. I'm trying to focus on what you're saying. It's going in. But I was thinking, when we talked about kind of what's acting out in the room, or what we hear has happened, or how people are being seen to behave, or young people, they're coming in with all those judgments of themselves, the judgments of others, but they've adapted to their environments from coming out of the pod. And we are back to Carl and that relational work. There's a lifetime of undoing, and even if you're 6, 7 or 8 or 4, 5 and 6, there's a lifetime of their lifetime of undoing that. And how time is key to not have a time frame, a strict time frame. Everybody's process is different, no matter how old they are or how young they are. You go in with what that client is bringing, and if you can connect with them, then it starts to help them relax in the room and just be themselves. And then from that point, you can start to recognize and help them be aware of those things. You know, in a non-judgmental way, exploring it. And you know, how many adaptations do we all have in life? This is not just an ND thing. That's the big thing about this. I don't like this separation of ND, neurotypical. We're all just people. We're all, you know, and neurodivergent people it's heterogeneous. If you meet one, you meet one. And isn't that the same every day with all our clients? You meet one. So it's taking the label out and understanding the client right in front of me without all of that.
And it's interesting that you went there, because my mind was starting to go there as well. Maybe we had a code. So but I remembered about when you've talked about states and traits.
Yes.
So just talk about that again, kind of like make that distinction.
States and traits. I heard it a long time ago, and I think I framed it wrong. And then I think about it. It's language makes meaning. So you're in a state of reaction response to something. Does that make it your trait? I think maybe I'm explaining it different now from originally, because I really rethought this idea that, you know, we can be in a state of calm and something happens and we get into a state of reaction or response. If someone comes up behind you, you're calm. Even like playing boo or frightening somebody or jumping in front of somebody to scare them or have a bit of a laugh. That body's then gone into a reactive state. Now, I know they talk about personality traits and things like that, but if we take, you know, that out of the word and the language, if someone's in one responsive state or reactive state or calm state or distressed state, they can change into other states. But does that mean that's who they are? The angry one, the fidgety one, the quiet one, the shy one, the introverted, the extroverted. It's all these labels that creates a criteria they fit into. You know, you met me. yeah, if you met me, you think, oh, she didn't shut up, she chats. But if you meet me in the morning, or you meet me when I'm tired, or you meet me in a group of people that I'm really settled with, I'll be the quiet one.
Yeah. So
Dependent so the trait, I'm still kind of working with trait. Be interesting to hear what other people see it as. Right. Because it's less fixed in my mind now. Because at first it was like a trait is a label we put on somebody, or traits, or is it their personality?
Okay.
And you'll see it, you know, the language used in research papers and in all sorts of different areas. Well, that's their personality. That's how they came out. That's what they're like.
Right.
Then it becomes, the state becomes their trait. So it shifts. Yeah. Oh, their personality is they're a bit grumpy, or they're a bit, or they're fidgety, or they're the angry. Oh, I hear that a lot. The angry child, or the angry adult, or the withdrawn, when actually it's a response to what's going on in their environment, or what's happening internally. You know, you've got what's happening, what's going on in your body when you're interfacing with the world, what's going on outside of you, and also what are the memories that are coming out your lovely filing cabinets back in your brain that creates that reaction or response. So there's quite a lot of layers to it. So if I say it's a sunshiny day, it will immediately take me back to my filing cabinets back there. Nice IKEA filing cabinets as well. The nice white ones are all clean with lots of plants on them. And thinking about sunny days, the smell of it, being on holiday, walking in the woods, that's an immediate reaction.
Yeah. And
it creates then a calming response. Whereas if I go on holiday and I'm in the airport, my reaction is, oh, get me out of here. I'm feeling really stressed. There's too much noise, all the smells, too many people, everybody's too close. So I'm going on holiday, but the state inside of me is in distress because there's too much sensory input.
Yeah.
So at that point, I would look like a distressed, you know, over a certain age woman, you know, can't control her emotions. Oh, she's probably menopausal. See all those labels I can put on myself.
Yeah.
Whereas if you actually knew what was going on inside me, for me to either be in that state, it's not my trait, it's not my personality.
Yeah.
My reaction too.
I don't know if I'm seeing this a little bit differently to maybe last time we talked about this, which is why I love doing our peer supervisions. It really is. It kind of like helps me think back and go deeper. So, because I'm thinking about my traits as almost like the things that I do. So it's like this is quite an internalized process. I recognize that. So it's like, but I think that's something as well. Sorry, I'm doing that thing now as well where I'm bouncing around. Right. Okay. So I'm wondering now about that internalization of traits and the externalization of traits.
Yes.
So the externalized trait version of the traits is what gets labeled, isn't it? Yes. So, but the internalized version of traits, I'm thinking of those about what I've always called my funny little quirks.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. As usual, you've soundbited my very long kind of explanation of things into a concise, brief overview.
But I don't think I had that. I don't think I had that there before. I think something's obviously percolated in me, which is great. So, but I think I have got that distinction. So for some reason, when you've said states and traits before, I've not necessarily thought about it in terms of personality traits, but then I don't know what's going on there.
I think I've heard it, you know, traits, personality traits. I've heard, you know, physical traits, emotions. So trait is a real word that has always had something, a precursor to a word before it, isn't it? Personality trait, physical's trait, I don't know, gene trait. That's where my exploration around it was. When I've heard it, but you know, like, you know, I sometimes explain some things in pictures, and I have my two little stick men. Oh God, stick men I always use. You know, there's your stick man, all very calm, and there's your stick man in response or reaction to. So there's the state. But what trait is, there we go. Again, it's language, it's exploring what that means for the client as well. So if we come back to the client work, the client comes in going, I'm the angry one. There's their trait, I believe. The one that kicks off. I'm the one that does this. And actually, what is happening to create that activity in the body to then create that behavior? That's the bit we're trying to undo. There's the coping mechanism, there's the adaptation, and some people might say there's the manipulation. You know, you get your needs met by your responsivity or reactivity to things, and sometimes that's emotionally driven and sometimes that's logically driven. But with children, obviously their brains don't come fully online until 25, so they're still trying to develop their adaptations and manipulations to create safe spaces for themselves. Spaces is very broad.
And I'm noting there that you're using manipulations not in that negative connotation, but in terms of like how we all kind of try to just make small adaptations and changes to our environment, whether that's a person in the environment or, you know, me moving my glasses or changing my glasses, for example. That's a manipulation, isn't it?
Absolutely. Trying to manipulate your body into a pair of jeans that you had 20 years ago. You know, it's like stuck your gut in, and you know, I know that's the whole silly thing, but that's you know, we are I say this all the time. Darwin said those that they're not the strong survives, the ones that can adapt. How do we know when someone comes in the room how long those adaptations have been set and how they've developed them? And then if you kind of take a next step on, their coping mechanisms, they could be really good ones, going for a run, playing sport, connecting with family, getting hugs, or, you know, some of the negative, more, you know, very detrimental ones. You know, we get into addictions, we get into doing things. I'm just trying to think things that are negative for the body and for the emotions. So I don't want to name things because everything's different for everybody. There's a reason, and we're always working with, what did one of my supervisees, I think she got it from somebody else and I borrowed it, that it's the archaeological dig, not the murder. And I love that idea that you're just trying to peel away slowly, but you can only be in connection with the client and when they're co-regulating with you, when that starts to happen. And it might not be, the young person or the adult's having a chat about what's happened. It might be inferred or underneath it all, you know, which comes to the way that some neurodivergents explain their world, like myself. You know, the story is within another story. The story is within the play. The story is within the drawing. There's lots of different ways of explaining our story.
I got so caught up in thinking, which of my clients would like me talking about an archaeological dig?
Said it a few times to parents, and they get it. They get that.
I just came up with me. I didn't come up with any of my clients. So that's something for me. Thank you.
And it took me to something else that, you know, if you're working with a newly diagnosed adult, and I've used this with yourself, the wreckage of their life. And I use wreckage because of the things that have happened or they've reacted to, and it's created pathways and ways of functioning and ways of living because of the ways they've had to adapt to survive. And you're undoing all those things, but learning. That's why I made those. I can look now and go and be a bit much kinder to myself. I suppose that's the work we have to do as therapists anyway, to show compassion to yourself. But when you're working with an adult who's possibly will tell you I've made loads of mistakes, or I've had loads of relation problems or addictions, well, those have been their adaptations. So you're looking at it from a lens of compassion. I've got, this is how you've reacted, responded, this is how you are right now, but it doesn't mean it's a fixed state, back to state. It's not a fixed state. It's adaptation, manipulation, reactivity. You can see things in the body. You can see reactions in our body.
I'm just thinking about a badge that my friend showed me the other day of like, oh, did I roll my eyes too loudly?
Oh, don't get me started. I was actually looking for some badges. That someone gave me some badges with some wonderful things on about that. I'm going to see if I can find them. And they were all, let's see. If you can read this, you're too close. Now, my face usually says that.
Yeah.
Let's see what the other ones are. I just like, my brain has too many tabs open, four of them refrozen, and I have no idea where the music is coming from. But usually I will show that on my face. It's too peoply in here and outside. But my face will usually tell you, and I love when I'm working with clients and they don't have to say anything, but there's some clients I've worked with who obviously don't use language because, you know, neurodivergence has got a range of presentations. And once you really get to know them, you can actually tell them, I wonder if you're thinking that. Oh, I've noticed you don't like that while that happens. And that's lovely when those connections are made. There was a piece of, I can't remember which training I did. I don't know whether it was with Porges or whoever, but someone said once you get the glint in the eye from the client and they make that eye contact and you have that minute of contact or that second, you're in. Yeah. Look for that, you know, look for the grin at you, or look for the giggle, or look for someone walking too close to you and you're kind of being very conscious of that kind of spatial awareness, you know, and appropriateness of that. But there's always little, if you stay with the client, you see the clues to them connecting, and it's not always in their language. Yeah.
Zara, we've gone on much longer than we said we would.
I think coming round to the end of it though, I think, you know, like I was dysregulated when we started, so I had to get my feet on the ground and fidget with, well, not fidget, but manipulate and get my senses back online by manipulating something physically with my hands. But I think covering it, haven't we? We've talked about states and traits, about manipulations, adaptations, staying with the client. It's a process, it's not outcome. And it's much more about connection and letting the client connect with you